Privyet. Hello everyone. You're on the Slavic News Channel, and in this video, we'll discuss the most significant updates on the Russian-Ukrainian conflict. We have a lot of interesting updates, so let's begin. First, let's talk about the Kharkiv direction, where Ukrainian forces continue their attempts to attack Russian positions in Globoka. The Ukrainians have been making repeated attempts to push the Russians back from this territory. Over the previous day and night, Ukrainian forces tried to advance along three key lines, aiming to reinforce or rotate their troops currently positioned in the northern farms. Unfortunately for them, both attempts were detected by the Russians. In response, the Russians launched heavy bombardments, using their aviation to drop a significant number of FABs on Ukrainian forces. This led to considerable losses for the Ukrainians, who were then forced to retreat, with their attempts ultimately failing. However, these direct assaults are not the only strategy the Ukrainians have been employing. Over the past 24 hours, they have started using additional tactics to try and force the Russians out of this area. One such tactic involved crossing the Travianskia water reserve. This large water barrier posed a significant challenge, but the Ukrainians decided to attempt a crossing to land infantry on the other side. Their goal was to establish a reliable foothold and from there, launch attacks on Russian positions to cut one of the supply roads supporting Russian forces in the northern farms. This move was also meant to attack the Russians from behind. Yet again, the Russians were prepared. They discovered the concentration of Ukrainian forces and bombed the area, causing heavy losses and thwarting the crossing attempt. Next, let's move to the Volchansk direction. Here, we have new details about the Russian foothold on the Ukrainian side of the Seversky Donets River. The Russians have managed to expand their foothold in the northern part of the village of Prilipka. While we had earlier reports indicating a foothold in a different area, it seems the Russians have successfully established a more secure position here. Though we haven't received geolocation confirmation to update our map, it's clear that the Russians are consolidating their presence in this region. Now, let's discuss the Kupiansk direction. Russian and Ukrainian sources continue to report on the steady progress of Russian forces along the railways. The Russians are applying significant pressure on the Ukrainians with artillery, aviation, and systems like FDOs and TRARS. In the video shown, you can see the next Ukrainian stronghold on the Russians' path from Kislovka-Katlyarovka to Kupiansk. This area is well fortified with intersections of roads and railways, creating a formidable defensive position for the Ukrainians. Despite ongoing bombardments, there have been no changes on the ground yet. Further south in the Kupiansk direction, there has been additional progress. According to pro-Ukrainian mappers, the Russians have improved their position significantly. They are advancing towards the Zirabets River and getting closer to the village of Nevskaya. This marks a steady advance by the Russian forces, inching closer to strategic locations. Let's talk about the Seversk direction, where a significant update came during the previous night. Russian sources released a video showing the raising of the Russian flag in Ivano-Daryovka. This offensive operation by the Russians was very swift and seemed to catch the Ukrainians off guard. Following the fall of Sporn, which was captured by the Russians about a week or two ago, the Russians have managed to push further and force the Ukrainians to retreat from Ivano-Daryovka. This development is crucial as it means that there are now no more towns or villages between the Russian forces and Seversk itself. While there are still networks of fortifications and trenches, the absence of significant settlements makes it easier for the Russians to advance. The current distance between Russian positions and the first buildings in Seversk is less than 8 kilometers, highlighting the imminent threat to Ukrainian defenses in this area. Moving to the western Avdiivka direction, the Russians have made notable progress around the village of Progress. According to various mappers, the Russians have captured the forest near the village and have reportedly entered the first streets of Progress itself. This rapid advance suggests that the Ukrainians may struggle to hold this area for much longer. In the southern part of Novoselovka Persha, the Russians have complete control over the southern part of the village, clearing Ukrainian forces and preparing for further advances. Now, let's turn to the Ugledar direction, where the Russians have achieved significant success over the past 3 days. The Ukrainians are retreating from the fields towards strongholds like coal mines, and the Russians are capturing more territory. In the northern part, the Russians have improved their positions according to neutral mappers. In the southern part, they have captured additional fields and tree lines, forcing the Ukrainians to fall back. With this momentum, it's likely that the Russians will begin clashes for the coal mines and other strongholds by the end of next week, potentially securing significant portions of the T-0524 road. In the Vremivka tactical bridgehead Zaporizhzhia, there haven't been any significant updates. However, we have entered a new phase of the conflict with strikes and protests against power restrictions in Ukraine. In towns like Poltava, Zaporizhzhia, and Kremenchuk, locals have started blocking roads and demanding the lifting of power restrictions. These protests reflect growing unrest and frustration among Ukrainians due to the ongoing conflict and power shortages. As the situation worsens, more towns might join these strikes, indirectly protesting against Zelensky's regime and the way the country is being run during the war. This growing discontent among the Ukrainian population could further complicate the already challenging situation for the Ukrainian government. And that's it for this update. Slavic News Channel condemn any violence in the world. Thanks for watching and please like and subscribe.